आवाज़ आ रही है ना? अखिल भारतीय संस्थागत नेतृत्व समागम 2026 में मैं आप सभी का हार्दिक अभिनंदन और स्वागत करती हूँ। आज इस सत्र में हमारे बीच दो वक्ता हैं और एक अध्यक्षता जो कर रहे हैं। मैं आप तीनों को बड़े आदर और सम्मान के साथ मंच पर आमंत्रित करती हूँ। प्रोफेसर RP तिवारी सर, आप सत्र की अध्यक्षता करेंगे। प्रोफेसर नरेश अनेम सर, आप वक्ता के रूप में हमारे साथ रहेंगे। साथ ही प्रोफेसर P फानी कृष्णा, आप भी वक्ता के रूप में हमारे साथ रहेंगे। सर, मैं आप तीनों का हार्दिक अभिनंदन और स्वागत करती हूँ। बड़े ही हर्ष और गौरव का विषय है कि आज हमारे बीच पंजाब विश्वविद्यालय से प्रोफेसर राघवेंद्र पी तिवारी सर हमारे बीच उपस्थित हैं। सर, आपके सम्मान के लिए मैं आमंत्रित करती हूँ सेंट विल्फ्रेड कॉलेज से श्रीमती निधि जैन मैम को कि वे आएँ और आपका आदर और सम्मान करें। श्रीमती निधि जैन। आपको हमारे साथ पाकर हम बहुत आनंदित हैं, आह्लादित भी हैं, क्योंकि आपने अब तक अनेक विद्यार्थियों को PhD करवाई है। साथ ही साथ आपको बहुत सारे पुरस्कारों से भी नवाजा गया है, जिनमें प्रमुख रूप से भारतीय भूविज्ञान में योगदान के लिए L रामाराव जन्म शताब्दी पुरस्कार तथा डॉक्टर SM नकवी स्वर्ण पदक से भी आपको सम्मानित किया गया। सर, हम आपका पुनः पुनः हार्दिक अभिनंदन और स्वागत करते हैं। हमारे अगले वक्ता हैं डॉक्टर नरेश अनेम सर। आपके अभिनंदन के लिए मैं आमंत्रित करती हूँ राजस्थान विश्वविद्यालय से डॉक्टर आशा सक्सेना को। सर, आप शिक्षाविद तो हैं ही, साथ ही साथ अनुवादक भी हैं। आपने अनेक श्रेष्ठ पुस्तकों का अनुवाद किया है। वर्तमान में आप भारतीय उच्च अध्ययन संस्थान शिमला में एसोसिएट फेलो भी हैं। हम आपका हार्दिक अभिनंदन और स्वागत करते हैं। साथ ही हमारे साथ अगले वक्ता के रूप में हैं डॉक्टर P फानी कृष्णा। आपके स्वागत के लिए राजस्थान विश्वविद्यालय से डॉक्टर संतोष को मैं आमंत्रित करती हूँ। आप दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय में भाषा विज्ञान विभाग में सहायक प्रोफेसर के रूप में वर्तमान में कार्यरत हैं। साथ ही भारतीय भाषा समिति में अकादमिक समन्वयक के रूप में आप कार्यरत हैं। आपका कार्य भाषा विज्ञान, संगठनात्मक विज्ञान, सांस्कृतिक इतिहास तथा बहुभाषी भारत के सामाजिक वास्तविकताओं के बीच सेतु स्थापित करता है। आपका हम हार्दिक अभिनंदन और स्वागत करते हैं। वक्ताओं के बीच मैं अधिक नहीं आऊँगी और आगे के सत्र संचालन के लिए मैं आज के जो चेयर है, आज के जो अध्यक्षता कर रहे हैं, आपको मैं मंच सौंपती हूँ। आदरणीय प्रोफेसर RP तिवारी सर।
सभी लोगों को नमस्कार। अंतिम सेशन है। आप सबके चेहरे में थकावट स्पष्ट रूप से झलक रही है और इस स्थिति में बहुत ही गंभीर विषय पर चर्चा करने को हम सब लोगों को कहा गया है। मुझे इस सभागार में प्रवेश करने तक मालूम था कि मैं जिस सेशन में हूँ उसका शीर्षक है डेटा डिकोलोनाइजेशन इन सोशल साइंस रिसर्च। यहाँ आकर के पता चला कि ये भाषा पर है। दो बहुत ही प्रखर विद्वान इस विषय को आपके सामने बहुत विस्तार से रखेंगे। हम सबको मालूम है कि हमारा देश विविधता से परिपूर्ण देश है और ये विविधता जीवन के सभी पक्षों में है। भाषा के साथ साथ हमारा खान पान, रहन सहन, ड्वेलिंग स्टाइल, कृषि पद्धति और जो भी हम कार्य लें सब में विविधता है, विविधता संपन्न देश जिसको हम बोलते हैं। लेकिन जब से हम मिडिवल इंडिया से लेकर के और जब तक हम स्वतंत्र हुए तब तक हमारी इन सभी तरह की विभिन्नताओं को बहुत गलत ढंग से कॉलोनाइज किया गया और उसका बहुत सुंदर प्रस्तुति इसके पूर्व जो सत्र था उसमें डॉक्टर कृष्ण गोपाल जी ने, माननीय कृष्ण गोपाल जी ने बहुत अच्छे ढंग से रखी। विभिन्नता थी लेकिन जो उसका मूल भाव था वो एक था। इसीलिए हम एक कल्चरल नेशन के रूप में, नेशन स्टेट नहीं बट सांस्कृतिक राष्ट्र के रूप में हमारी पहचान आज से नहीं बल्कि जब से हमारी सभ्यता की शुरुआत हुई तब से एक सांस्कृतिक एकत्व की भावना से हम लोग अपना जीवन यापन कर रहे हैं और उसके रिफ्लेक्शंस हमें जीवन के सभी पहलुओं में हमें स्पष्ट रूप से दिखते हैं। लेकिन अभी जो समस्या है वो ये विभिन्नताएं धीरे धीरे खत्म हो रही हैं। खाने पीने से लेकर के भाषाई विभिन्नता भी धीरे धीरे खत्म हो रही हैं। बहुत सारी भाषाएं का अस्तित्व अब मिट रहा है क्योंकि वो उपयोग में नहीं है। जो लोकल डायलेक्ट्स हैं, जो भाषा नहीं बन पाए हैं, भाषा का स्थान जिनको नहीं मिल पाया था क्योंकि उनकी स्क्रिप्ट नहीं थी, वो भाषाएं धीरे धीरे समाप्त हो रही हैं। जो विविधताएं हैं उसको अंग्रेजी बहुत तीव्र गति से, अंग्रेजी भाषा हमारी सभी भाषाओं में, इवन जो लोकल डायलेक्ट्स हैं उनमें भी अंग्रेजी भाषा का उपयोग प्रयोग अभी काफ़ी मात्रा में होने लगा है। तो एक विभिन्नता जो है एक समानता, फ्लैटनेस की तरफ जा रही है। हम सबको मालूम है कि भाषा संस्कृति की संवाहक होती है और भाषा के माध्यम से ही संस्कृति रिप्रोड्यूस होती है। तो यदि इस विभिन्नता को हम इसकी ओरिजिन कैसे हुई, कितने भाषा परिवार हैं हमारे इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट में, उन भाषा परिवारों की ओरिजिन कैसे हुई और इन सभी भाषाओं में कितना धनी साहित्य जो उपलब्ध है, जो भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा विभिन्न भाषाओं में जो उपलब्ध है, तो इन भाषाओं का उपयोग कम होने से हम भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा से भी वंचित होते जा रहे हैं। तो इसको कैसे पुनर्स्थापित किया जाए, इसके लिए NEP 2020 ने अलग से ही एक चैप्टर किया और भारत सरकार ने इसके लिए एक समिति भी बनाई है जिसके अध्यक्ष हमारे माननीय चमू शास्त्री जी हैं और इसमें तीव्र गति से कार्य चल रहा है। ये तो सरकारी व्यवस्था हो गई, लेकिन जैसा हम जानते हैं कि हमारी संस्कृति केवल सरकारी व्यवस्था से नहीं फली फूली है। हमारा जो सिविलाइजेशन डिस्कोर्स है वो कभी सरकार पर निर्भर नहीं रहा है। समाज आधारित सभी तरह की व्यवस्थाएं हमारे यहाँ थी। लिंग्विस्टिक डाइवर्सिटी को भी उसका ओरिजिनेशन, उसकी सस्टेनेबिलिटी, सस्टेनेंस और उसका प्रिजर्वेशन एंड इनरिचमेंट वो भी समाज द्वारा ही ज़्यादा हुआ है। तो इन दोनों सरकार की भूमिका और समाज की भूमिका, इन दोनों को हमें सुनिश्चित करना पड़ेगा जिससे हमारी भाषा परिवार जो, और मैं तो पूर्वोत्तर भारत में 31 वर्ष रहा हूँ, तो पूर्वोत्तर भारत से तो लिविंग लेबोरेटरी ऑफ लैंग्वेजेस, और मैं तो एक लेख लिखा था उसमें ये भी बोला था कि एक संस्थान खुले नॉर्थ ईस्ट में जो सभी वहाँ पर जितनी तरह की भाषाएं हैं उन सभी भाषाओं पर वो शोध हो, उन सभी भाषाओं के संवर्धन हेतु प्रयास हों, योजनाएं बने, वो लागू हों। मैं इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ हमारे जो प्रखर विद्वान यहाँ इस विषय को आप सबके सामने प्रस्तुत करने के लिए मंचासीन हैं उनसे एक एक करके अनुरोध करूँगा। निर्णय उन दोनों का है, मेरे लिए दोनों बराबर हैं, तो आप दोनों निश्चित कर लीजिए कि पहले कौन बोलेगा और फिर अंत में मैं कुछ अपने विचार आप सबके सामने पुनः प्रस्तुत करूँगा। अभी के लिए धन्यवाद।
Good evening, respected Chair Professor Tiwari ji, and elders in front of me, Professor Nagaraj ji, Professor R.C. Sharma ji, Professor Murali Manohar ji, Professor Saraju ji, and others. Good evening once again. As sir said, you all look very dull. It looks like there is a lot of information overload today, right? Since morning, and this is the third session that back to back we are, here. So I'll try to put my words very clearly in terms of translation, because this is a different perspective that I would like to take. How translation becomes a kind of catalyst in uniting and promoting Indian languages, literatures, and cultures. Since morning we have been listening that India is a multilingual country. There is no doubt about it. Do you have any doubts? No. And same time, these languages coexist, and at the same time they co-evolve also. So that is the advantage of our country, and that is the unique feature of our country. But when you look from the Western lens, which is very divisive, right? And it's always looked from a divisive point of view, where we look at unity in diversity, but they look for the concepts like binaries. So when you have a major language, minor language, so Shastri was also mentioning about the vernaculars. So vernacular itself is very derogatory in nature, and we don't agree with that. So there is no major or minor for us. So for us, all languages are equal. All languages are national languages. So when I write something in Telugu, so right, my mother tongue, that is also national literature. So it contributes for the development of the country. Of course, since we are not a monolingual country like the European countries, so we have multilingualism as the unique feature. So which is the way we should celebrate multilingualism. So that is one thing. And of course, when you talk about language, so I feel that language, literature, and culture, so these three are inseparable. They are very much interconnected. So looking at language alone is different, but language, connecting it with literature and culture, becomes very, very important for us. That's how, if you look at the concept of Indian literature, so Indian literature is written in which language? Which language? Yes? Again, another question. Is there Indian literature or Indian literatures? Literatures. So for us, anything that is written in any of Indian languages, Bharatiya Bhashas, so they are all Indian literatures. So there is no doubt about it. And our national literature is not monolingual. Our national literature is multilingual, and the whatever that is written or translated in and among Indian languages, they are all national treasures, and that is the advantage of our country. And as we have been listening since morning, these languages, literatures, and cultures, they flourish side by side. So there is no bossism among languages. So there is no hierarchy at all. So there is no imposition of any language. So it's all, they're all equal. So that's the thing. And what is the role of translation in multilingual country? So how many of us can translate here? If I ask you to raise hands, how many of you raise hands? Only one? Two? Any language, any translation. In fact, all of us are translators, right? Why? Because we are in a multilingual setup at one point or the other, and most of us are, we can speak more than one language, right? So we speak Hindi, we speak Telugu, in English, and of course our own, mother tongues. So that's how the thought process, when you ask, how many of you can translate, we hesitate. But actually what we do in our day-to-day life is we translate in almost every situation, though it is very, very, informal, right? So translation is not new to us. Translation is an age-old practice, in the country. So there is no doubt that, since ancient days we have been, listening about different translations. And when it comes to the Bharatiya perspective, as I told, so unity and that harmony among languages and literatures is the very, very important thing. Each language is distinct. There is no doubt about it, and they are also interconnected. So the language, when we talk about the commonalities among the languages, so you may say linguistically there are syntactic, then morphological and phonological commonalities. There is no doubt about it, and at the same time, we also share certain traditions. For example, if you look at the harvest festival, so that is celebrated in different parts of the country. Of course, there are different names they are given, But we celebrate. We celebrate Sankranti in Telangana and Andhra, and then Pongal, and then Bihu. Different names are given, but ultimately, when you look at the sense, the spirit is the same. So that's why at morning also, someone was telling, Shastriji was telling that Bhashayam Anek, Bhav Ek. So that's the spirit. That is the shared tradition that is actually connecting us, which is invisible, right? So when you look at the Western lens or Western perspective, that may look that you are different, I am different, and each language is different, each cultures are different. Then we are all different people. So that is the other perspective. But we don't agree with that kind of concept. And of course, when it comes to the role of translation as a catalyst. So translation, as I told, is very, very part of our culture, our day-to-day lives. Bharatiyata is a continuous process. It is a dynamic interplay of different cultures coming together, and they are very much divergent also, and different distinct cultural voices, and they give us the freedom to express the imagined community of the nation. Because when we say the imagined community, so the Benedict Anderson's imagined community is different, but for us, it is not actually imagined, it is very much there. Because the concept of Bharatiya Bhasha Parivar is also, it is not imaginary one. Because in one of the discussions, I heard that methodologically, there is so much to be done. That was one of the comments that I heard very recently. But if you look at this book, Bharatiya Bhasha Parivar, all the evidences are given. Literary evidences, historical, archaeological, astronomical, different mathematical evidences are given to prove that. So we share certain, the different, commonalities among Indian, languages. So now, so the role of translation in multilingual society is, it promotes the unity among our languages, literatures, and it actually counters the hierarchy among the languages. Because when you say that I translate from X language to Y language, so which language is higher? Right? Both the languages are important. They are actually equal. But when you look at the Western concept of translation, so again there is a binary. So you call it as source text and target text. So they say that target text is always inferior to the source text. It is never actually. Because when you say that target text is inferior, so it means that is completely distorted. Right? But when you look at our own literatures, for example, Nannaya has transcreated. He himself uses the word Anushrujana in Telugu. So Anushrujana means transcreation. So he never says that he has translated. But for us, like who could not read Sanskrit, for me when I read Nannaya's Mahabharata, that is original for me. So later, the Western translation study scholars, they say that translation is a rewriting in very early 20th century. But for us, translation is retelling since olden days. So for example, as I told, Nannaya's Mahabharata, so that was transcreated or Anushrujana that was made around 10th and 11th centuries itself. It is not very latest like the as the Western scholars talk about. And we have other examples also, because we like to look at translation as Anuvad, Bhashantar, Rupantar, different names. But when you look at the Western point of view, translation means you should always have some kind of equivalence. So equivalence at word level, if you look at the linguistic theories of translation starting from Catford, Naida, Peter Newmark and all, they talk about the equivalence at word level, sentence level, etc. So but when you look at the larger context, so that is known as Scopus theory in the translation studies. So that Scopus theory is of course very latest, but we had this since beginning itself. So there are certain other examples like Bharatas, for example, Mahabharat, Jagannatha Dasa's Bhagavata in Odia, and also Pampa's Vikramarjuna Vijaya in Kannada. So they are actually looked at as translations, but in fact if you look at, they are not translations, they also added the local ethos. For example, there are different versions of Ramayana, for example, right? So A.K. Ramanujan talks about 300 Ramayanas, right? There are actually more than 1,000 varieties of Ramayanas are available. But now, which one is superior? For us, that question never arises. Why? Because we treat all the Ramayanas whichever are available to us, they are all Ramayanas, that's it. So we have, for example, in Telugu itself, we have Malla Ramayanam. So that is written in very, very simple style. So in 14th, 15th century, she has written that in 870 verses itself. Very, very simple. So that is easily understood by common man also. And there is one person called Ranganatha Ramayana. Gona Buddha Reddy has written Ranganatha Ramayana. Same thing that he has also done. So likewise, there are different Ramayanas that are available in different languages. For example, in Malayalam, I think that is known as Kallipattu Ramayana. So likewise, so what is happening there? So you are adding the local ethos and you are making it as a kind of retellings. So all the retellings they are equally respected and equally, that status is given. There is nothing like source or target in our, Indian, concept. But when you look at that Western thing, so the translation as rewriting, translation as original. These days people call it as translation as original. What is translation? Why is it translation as original? When translation is looked at as original, then why do you call it as translation? Right? Because the logic behind that is there are two strategies that are adapted. One is foreignization, the other is domestication. If a work has so much of domestication, right, so that has a lot of freedom, then there is no concept of fidelity there. So what is happening here? So this is treated as a kind of original because it has taken or it has got the inspiration from the original and it is written. So this is the latest concept there, but we already have this one very, very long time ago itself. So likewise, Ramachandra Charita Purana in Kannada is also one such example that we can think about. And when you also look at the legendary characters or legendary personalities like Rama and Krishna, right? So they are not actually translated from one language or one culture, right? So they are equally respected and equally known to all of us, and we have come to know about them through, again, how? Through different versions. Either they are translations, transcreations, or retellings. So and another thing is, so ultimately what becomes is translation become a kind of catalyst. So it is playing the role of a catalyst, so which is bringing different languages, cultures together, wherein you translate one work from one language to the other language. For example, Sahitya Academy, for example. So every year they give Sahitya Academy main awards. So after that, so these books are translated or they get them translated into different Indian languages. So that's how this translation, through translation, these literatures are being made available to other readers also. So that's why when we say that, Aur ek Bharatiya Bhasha Seekhe, so that is the new slogan, learn one more Indian language. So what happens when you learn another Indian language is, so you are connected to that language, you are connected to that literature, you are connected to that culture also. So that's how, so instead of depending on the pivot translation. So what is this pivot translation? So using some intermediary language. So when I don't know some other Indian language, so I read the English translation of it and then I translate into other language. So that is known as pivot translation, where you are using a kind of intermediary language. So we should come out of that, pivot translation. We should be in a position to translate from one Indian language to another Indian language, wherein you are directly getting connected to different, Indian languages. So that is another important thing. And so we are talking about this multilingualism, but this multilingualism itself is not a new concept, because these days, last 2-3 years, Bharatiya Bhasha Parivar has become a buzzword actually, right? So we talk about it. There are people who oppose and who support. That is a different concept. But multilingualism, if you look back, look at the works of Kalidasa, for example. So he has written in Sanskrit. In the same text itself, you can find multilingualism. He has used Prakrit, he has used Apabhramsha, he has also used Magai, right? So likewise, so there are different people who have, even modern days, as someone was talking about R.K. Narayan and Rajarao and all, so they have used, of course, latest writers like Meena Kandasamy, for example. She has written a poem called Milagatanni Dreams. So that Milagatanni is actually a Tamil word, right? So where, milaga is pepper and then thanni is water. So she wanted to express in English, but that English which is again, based on her own, native culture. So that is also another way that we look at multilingualism. For example, you take the example of Amitav Ghosh. So Amitav Ghosh, the shadow lines, for example. So he has written, that's a very complex language that he uses, but if you look at the kinship terms in that novel, so he uses all Bengali terms there. Like he uses the terms like Tama, Mesha Moshai, Jata Moshai, etc., etc. So why is it so? Because you knowingly or unknowingly, we are practicing that multilingualism in our day-to-day literary writings also. I think there was a question in the morning also, like, what is the role of Gen Z in that? right? So because Gen Z, now that there are a lot of issues that are happening with spellings and all that, so do they have a role in playing that? Because you can use any language, but at the same time, it is also your responsibility to protect our mother tongues, right? So there is nothing wrong in learning other tongues, but not at the cost of our mother tongue. So that's why mother tongues become very, very important. Now, that's why NEP 2020 chapter 22 talks about promoting Indian languages, cultures, and arts, right? So mother tongue based education becomes very, very important. So now the question may come that first fundamental question is, what is mother tongue and how is it different from home language? So that is a debatable thing. Let us keep that aside. So now, are we equipped to offer education in mother tongues, right? And what are the efforts and what is that we should do now? So to do that, we need to make these works available, the reference books, the textbooks available, make them available in Indian language. So that is a primary task. Unless there is a reading material, so there is no point in that you say that mother tongues education will work. So of course, Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti, CSTT, they're all working on to prepare the textbooks. And at the same time, they're also planning to come up with the uniform common vocabulary. So wherein the concepts like, because I also been part of certain CSTT workshops, the opposition comes that people are ready to accept English word rather than some word either from Sanskrit or from Hindi. I don't know why is it. When you are able to accept the foreigner's language, so what is the problem to understand? For example, when we say that pranavayu, right? So pranavayu in Telugu also, pranavayu people understand. So but for such words, some other languages may have their own terms. If there is a term that is created, there is no problem at all. Sometimes these terms also become loaded, right? Wherein people may not understand the concept of it, because it becomes more kind of difficult to understand than being reading it in English. So that kind of situations we have to also address. So now, what is the role of translation again? The certain translation like literary trends. So literary trends like there may be one literary trend or movement like Bhakti movement, right? So Bhakti movement, now that you cannot confine it to one language, right? So it has spread from south to north and different parts, and it started in around 7th century. It continued up to 17th century. So in between we have seen different languages, different writers writing in different parts and different things. So for example, this Bhakti movement also influenced different people from the language contact zones. That is another important thing, that these through translations these trends can also be transferred to the other languages and cultures. So that is one other important aspect. So now that translation plays an important role in promoting Indian languages, and also the oral folk traditions. So oral folk traditions also you cannot avoid, right? So because they are part of, they are not written, but they are oral. But that doesn't mean that they don't get that value. For example, in some convergence zones between Telugu and Kannada, so Burrakatha is one very famous folk art form. So this is known as bilingual narration. So there used to be some bilingual narrators. So when you go to the Kannada part of, or the Kannada region, they narrate it in Kannada, and when it comes to the border area of Telangana, they narrate in Telugu. Based on the audience, they change that. So now that what is happening, so it is not actually translation. The narration itself is happening because they have that bilingual contact zone. And at the same, the art form is also continued in both the regions. So that kind of things. And as I told, literary trends like, for example, Telugu and Kannada, they share very similar literary trends and movements also. For example, Palkuriki Somanatha has written Basava Purana. So that was immediately translated into Kannada by Bhima Kavi. So that work has become more popular in Kannada than in Telugu. But actual source is Telugu. So, but it is very, very popular, and it is well read and well discussed in Kannada regions. So that's how translation plays that role. And these days, we also saw certain translation systems. So now that we understand the importance of translation, right? So can we do these things only manually? Because you want to offer education in mother tongues, there is a need for lack of textbooks, and we need more number of textbooks. So that's why government has also come up with certain translation tools which are available. When we say translation tools, it's not again the Google or ChatGPT kind of thing, and Anuvadini and Bhashini. There are certain government initiatives. So now that you can also get it translated simultaneously in different languages. So that also brings that gap down. So it will narrow down the gap. So that is also, because the more there is a translation work, the more there is a connectivity, the more there is a shared, tradition, and then we'll come together, different languages, cultures, and the literatures come together. And we all, of course, we love entertainment, there is no doubt about it. So these days we call this pan-Indian movies, right? So what is this pan-Indian movies? Pan-India is present across nation, right? So these days it is not just Hindi movie or Telugu movie, right? So it's all pan-Indian movie. A Telugu movie can be in multiple languages. So that's why its presence is there everywhere, not just confined to India, even elsewhere also they are being done. Recently, Durandar or Kantara and all. See, unless till we watched that movie Kantara, we didn't know about the culture of southern Karnataka, very near to Mangalore region, right? So how did we come to know that? Again, through audiovisual translation. So audiovisual translation means subtitling and dubbing. So these days we watch, of course, Korean drama. This Gen Z will, they prefer K-dramas and all that. There is no doubt about it. So now that we have that facility that all these OTT platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime, so they offer different subtitles in different languages. So you can watch a movie in first half an hour in one language, then you can change it to multiple other languages also. So that is another important thing. Unknowingly or invisibly, we are actually, that is bringing us together. So this audiovisual translation, subtitling and dubbing. Dubbing and subtitling is not a new concept. Dubbing, we used to watch Amitabh Bachchan's movies, dubbed into Telugu, and of course even Tamil, Rajinikanth's movies into Telugu. So, but there used to be a time gap. But now that, so this is also a business technique. The producers also, they release in multiple languages. So one movie, now that it is there in Hindi, Malayalam, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, and other languages also. I'm very happy for that. But that now that it is confined to only 5-6 languages. But there should be more languages to be included, because now that it's fashion that these movies are also subtitled into Japanese and Spanish, Italian, different languages. But our focus should be more into or more among Indian languages. So that is another thing. So I think I'm done with my time. I'm getting some indications. So now, what is our role to do? So one is, as someone asked, the Gen Z's role definitely is there. So we should be very, very careful about this one. And this Bharatiya Bhasha Parivar concept should be part of the curriculum, and it should be nurtured from the beginning, from school level itself. So now that if you teach these things to a graduate or a postgraduate, so it will take time to sync or understand and connect to that. But it should be part of our regular curriculum. And of course, we talk about decolonizing the language classification, but what I feel that first we have to decolonize our linguistics departments, I think, right? So we should stop teaching those binaries or those language families. Though we wanted to avoid the concept of language families, we always talk about Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, Indo-Tibetan, all these things, right? So somewhere, as someone pointed out, we should form our own names, nomenclature for describing these things. And of course, we have a broad term that is Bhasha Parivar. There is no doubt about it. And there should be more translation activities that should be done among Indian languages, and through the concepts or the new schemes like or new initiatives like learn one more Indian language. So when we are learning Spanish, French in school levels, why can't we learn other languages? What is the problem, right? So I think these things are to be thought of very seriously. So I think with this I end my talk. Thank you so much for your patient listening. Thank you.
आप सभी को नमस्कार। जैसे सर ने बताया है, कॉग्निटिव लोड सुबह से थोड़ा ज़्यादा ही है। उसको जैसे अभी लिटरेचर के विषय पे जब चर्चा आ रहा था, तो मेरे को एक खता याद में आया है। वो शायद मूड को लाइटन करे और भाषा परिवार का सोच थोड़ा और ज़्यादा आप में जाए। विषय ये है कि एक राजा था, जैसा हर कथा शुरू होता है। वो राजा के दरबार में एक व्यक्ति गायक गया है और वो गाना शुरू किया है। तो राजा को बहुत पसंद आया। उन्होंने बोला है हीरे ले लो, तो वो और गाना शुरू किए। उन्होंने बोला जवाहरात ले लो, और अच्छा गा रहे थे। उन्होंने बोला ज़मीन ले लो, और अच्छा गा रहे थे। तो ऐसे ही सभा अंत हुआ। अगले दिन जब गायक राजा के पास पहुंचा, उन्होंने पूछा आप आए? तो राजा बोल रहे थे, गायक बोल रहा था अब जो हीरे ज़मीन ये सब देने वाले थे वो लेने आया हूँ। तो राजा बोले थे ये लेने देने वाली बात कब आया है, आपने मेरा कान कुश किया, मैं आपका कान कुश किया। तो ऐसा एक दूसरे का कान ना कुश करते हुए भारतीय भाषा परिवार को आगे लेके जाना है, ऐसा हमारा संकल्पना है। ये भारतीय भाषा परिवार का एक मुख्य उद्देश्य ये है कि जैसे सुबह से 3 वक्ताओं ने आपके सामने रखा है विषय कि भारतीय भाषाओं में जो विभाजनकारी सोच जो हमें सिखाया गया है या आज भी हम चला रहे हैं, वो है एक लैंग्वेज फैमिली के लिए इंडो आर्यन, द्रविडियन, साइनो टिबेटन, टिबेटो बर्मन या आजकल और अन्य क्लासिफिकेशंस भी आ रहे हैं, जैसे मुंडा लैंग्वेज थियरी एक आया है, या अभी अंडमानीज के विषय पे भी अलग अलग विषय आए हैं। उस भारतीय भाषा परिवार पुस्तक का एक सोच ये है कि ये जो अभी प्रेजेंट एग्जिस्टिंग लिंग्विस्टिक सिस्टम को हम नकार नहीं रहे हैं, उसमें हमारा सोच ये है इसको सुधार ऐसा होना चाहिए कि ये थियरीज जो हैं ये भारतीय भाषाओं को कैसे नीड फुलफिल करेगा, ऐसे सोचना चाहिए, ऐसा एक मुख्य उद्देश्य है। जब हम भाषाई फैमिलीज डिवीज़न ये सब जब देखते हैं, इसके साथ साथ हमको माइग्रेशन थियरीज भी साथ में आते हैं। जैसे ये आर्यन इन्वेजन थियरी, ये बताया जाता है कि बाहर से आर्य आए हैं और द्रविड़ को नीचे पुश किए हैं, इसीलिए इनका भाषा अलग है, उनका भाषा अलग है। या आप मुंडा माइग्रेशन थियरी, पॉल सिद्वेल एंड राव ने जो प्रपोज किया है, दे से दैट ये उड़ीसा के गोपालपुर पोस्ट में ये मुंडा माइग्रेट हुए हैं, ये इंडोनेशिया, मलेशिया से ऐसे ट्रैवल करते हुए दे रीच्ड उड़ीसा गोपालपुर पोर्ट, देन द सेटलमेंट्स एंड देन the whole story continued, and now these Janjati populations are termed as Munda population, and these are based on a speculative theory, और ये एक lexical items को base करते हुए they define that because of these lexical items we are defining this as a different family। परंतु जब एक बेसिक सोच, जब हम ये चर्चा, जब भारतीय भाषा परिवार का जब चर्चा हो रहा था, उसमें बहुत सारे डिस्कशन जब आए थे, इसमें हमारा ये क्वेश्चंस था, जब लेक्सिकल आइटम्स के बेस करके लैंग्वेज फैमिलीज को यदि डिसाइड आप करते हैं, तो मुन्ना माइग्रेशन थियरी को यदि हम लेते हैं, बोट से वो गोपालपुर पोर्ट आए हैं, तो उनके भाषा में बोट का वर्णन होना चाहिए, उनके भाषा में हाई टाइड लो टाइड का विवरण होना चाहिए। ये सारा जो है, ये बेसिक वोकैबुलरी जो ये मुन्ना लैंग्वेजेस में आपको दिखाई देता है। हमने सोरा, जुराई, हम पिंगो, कुवी, सब में एक एक एग्जाम्पल लिए हैं, और हमने देखा है इन भाषाओं में बोट का शब्द किस किस भाषाओं में है। तो अब हम जब ये लेक्सिकल आइटम्स को देख रहे थे, या व्हेन वी आर ट्राइंग टू कंपेयर, most of this term of boat is actually borrowed from the nearby dominant language. It can be Odia, or in case of somehow we found that Santali had a word called padav, which is boat in Telugu, padava in Telugu. So ऐसा multiple आए हैं, और उनमें ये लो टाइड हाई टाइड का विवरण होने दीजिए, या पानी का विषय पे जो भी चर्चा करते हैं, वो सारा विवरण आपको दिखाई नहीं देता है। तो बेसिकली ऐसे वोकैबुलरीज को लेके कैसे डिसाइड कर सकते हैं, यदि ये मैक्स मिलर होने दीजिए, या पॉल सिद्वेल रॉ होने दीजिए, या फ्रांस बाप होने दीजिए, या उनके लेटर जो भी थ्योरिटिशियंस जो विषय रखते आए हैं, वो लेक्सिकल आइटम्स को बेस करते हुए, या बिकॉज ऑफ नॉट having some particular feature being present in that particular language, they decided it to be a different language family। ये ऐसे सोच से यदि हम जाते हैं, तो हर एक भाषा को हम सेपरेटली दिखाना पड़ेगा। अब द्रविडियन बोलेंगे, जो तमिल में जो शब्द हैं वो शायद तेलुगु में नहीं है, या हिंदी शब्द में जो हैं वो शायद आपको पंजाबी में नहीं दिखेंगे। तो इंडो आर्यन द्रविडियन नहीं, पंजाबी फैमिली, तेलुगु फैमिली, तमिल फैमिली, मराठी फैमिली, ऐसा कहना पड़ सकता है। ये विभाजनकारी जो क्लासिफिकेशन जो कर रहे हैं, वो एक स्ट्रैटेजिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव मूव था उनके लिए, परंतु ये भाषाई एकता या भाषाई झगड़ा ना रहना भारत देश में, ये सभी इन टर्म्स ऑफ जनरल नॉलेज भी हम जानते हैं। ये ये एकता का भाव या एकता का हम विषय क्यों रख रहे हैं? यदि हमने और एक वेरी स्मॉल स्टडी हमने किया था समिति में कि एक 1000 वर्ड्स ऐसा एक हमने 22 भाषाओं में स्क्रिप्ट लेके हमने देखा है कितना परसेंटेज ऑफ वोकैबुलरी जो है वो कॉमन है। तो यदि आप हिंदी में, तेलुगु में या मराठी में आपको एटलीस्ट एक 500 वर्ड्स का पैराग्राफ पढ़ेंगे, आप बहुत सूक्ष्म रूप से यदि ऑब्जर्व करेंगे, आपको 10 से 15 शब्द जो है वो आपका भाषा से डायरेक्टली आप रिलेट कर सकते हैं। वो क्यों है? यदि मैंने आपको मेरा मातृभाषा तेलुगु है, मैं प्रयास करता हूँ कि हिंदी में बोलूँ, हिंदी में सीखूँ, तो मेरा हिंदी में कुछ गलत है तो आप ये, तो जब ये मैं विषय रखता हूँ तो हर एक फीचर, लेट्स से अब कॉमनैलिटीज़ का जब सारे वक्ताओं ने भी इसका उल्लेख किया था, वो कॉमन इसमें आप रीग्लूड चाय वाय जो शब्द हम यूज़ करते हैं, तेलुगु में भी वही विषय है, या अन्य भाषाओं में भी ऐसा ही एक रीडुप्लिकेशन होने दीजिए या एको फॉर्मेशन होने दीजिए, ये टिप टिप बरसा पानी या ऐसे जो टिप टिप बारिश के लिए जो हम शब्द यूज़ करते हैं, ऐसे बहुत सारे विषयों में आप इमीडिएटली रिलेट कर पाते हैं। वो क्यों है? क्योंकि हमारा भाषाओं में या व्यक्ति में वो एकता का भाव ऑलरेडी हमारे विषय में या हमारे संस्कृति में है। इसीलिए जैसे बाइनरी का भी जब विषय आता है, लिंग्विस्टिक्स में मेजर टर्म्स है सुपरस्ट्रैटम, सबस्ट्रैटम। ऐसे जब शब्द आते हैं, सुपरस्ट्रैटम मीन्स ये भाषा जो है इससे आया है, इसके ऊपर कुछ और है। सबस्ट्रैटम हम यदि कहते हैं कि ये इससे नीचे और एक भाषा हो सकता है, वो a form of, it can be a form of dialect, it can be any other form of language. जब ऐसे सुपरस्ट्रैटम सबस्ट्रैटम जब वेस्टर्न डिवीजन हुआ है, उसमें ही भारतीय भाषाओं में वो एकता का विषय ही दूर करते हैं। तो इसीलिए ये भारतीय भाषा परिवार का पुस्तक में हमने एक वर्ड कॉइन किया है, वो है इक्विस्ट्रैटम। जब हम इक्विस्ट्रैटम कहते हैं, वो एक समानता का भाव लाना और भाषाई एकता को और सिविलाइजेशनल कंटिन्यूम को दर्शाना हमारा मुख्य उद्देश्य था। इसमें जो वाक्य सिविलाइजेशनल कंटिन्यूम का जो शब्द ये है कि इट इज़ नॉट अबाउट आज ऐसा भाषा, ये साउंड चेंज के वजह से जो लिंग्विस्टिक थियरीज में बहुत सारा विषय में अब साउंड चेंज के वजह से बिकॉज ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर लैंग्वेज स्पीक्स इन दिस पर्टिकुलर मैनर, henceforth this cannot be treated to be of the same language. X and Y cannot be same because of this feature. जैसे हम बोलते हैं, आपको कॉमन सेंस से भी हम यदि सोचेंगे, हमारा सारे भाषाओं का वर्णमाला आ आ ई है, काका गागा ई है, टाटा डाडा ना ही है। जब ये शब्द के साथ हम लेके जाते हैं, या हमारा जो वर्णमाला का सिस्टम है उसमें भी अभी एक मैंने एक आर्टिकल पढ़ा था जिसमें कॉमनैलिटीज़ इन टर्म्स ऑफ वर्णमाला जो बता रहे हैं। ये साउंड सिस्टम हमारे पास ऑलरेडी विषय है, तो हाउ वी आर चेंजिंग दिस साउंड्स एंड हाउ दिस सिस्टम हैज़ प्रोबेबली इम्प्रूव्ड इन ए ड्यू कोर्स ऑफ टाइम, इसका एक हिस्टोरिकल नैरेटिव भी होना चाहिए, पर उसका कॉन्क्रीट एविडेंसेस ऐसा कुछ लिटरेरी थियरीज में या लिंग्विस्टिक थियरी में साउंड चेंज का विषय आता है, पर ये यूनिफॉर्मिटी का साउंड चेंज ऐसा विषय पे कुछ चर्चा में नहीं दिखता है। परंतु भारतीय भाषा परिवार का ये संकल्पना में जो वन ऑफ दोज मेजर डिस्कशंस जो हम करते हैं, एक ट्रुबेट्स्कॉय ने एक टर्म कॉइन किया है स्पार्स बंड के नाते, दैट इज़ लाइक देर आर पर्टिकुलर ग्रुप ऑफ ज्योग्राफी में एक सेट ऑफ लैंग्वेजेस जो नियर बाई होते हैं, वो एक ग्रुप फॉर्म करके स्पार्चबंड बोल के एक शब्द प्रयोग किया है। उसका आई मीन दैट इज़ द सिंपलेस्ट वे दैट आई कैन एक्सप्लेन, बट पोस्ट स्पार्चबंड पीपल टॉक्ड अबाउट लिंग्विस्टिक एरिया, देन लाइक एमिन्यू टॉक्ड अबाउट इंडिया एज अ लिंग्विस्टिक एरिया। हम ये विषय क्यों रख रहे हैं? बिकॉज ऑफ सुबह प्रोफेसर आरसी शर्मा जी ने विषय रखा था अबाउट contact and convergence. So what we, even in the book that we have clearly mentioned, it is a long lasting contact induced process that these Bharatiya languages had, and down the line in the history obviously there might be higher grade of probability that sound change हो सकता है, परंतु उसका भाव जो है वो समान है, सारे भाषाओं में एक एकता का दर्शन आता है। ऐसे बहुत सारे विषय इसमें चर्चा किया है। और जब हम भाषाई linguistic theories में in and we have also mentioned Thomson 2000 work wherein he also talks about diffusion. So features जो है वो diffuse होते हैं क्योंकि maybe because of the contact or in the due course of history of languages or migration because of trade, exchange, culture, tradition, ये बहुत सारे विषयों के जब बहुत सारे विषय आते हैं उनमें एक कॉन्टैक्ट इंड्यूस चेंज आता है और उस वजह से भी भाषा में चेंजेस आ सकते हैं। ये ऐसा नहीं है कि भाषा जो बिकॉज ऑफ दोज ज्योग्राफी रिलेटेड चेंजेस और जो कॉन्टैक्ट इंड्यूस चेंजेस यू कैन नॉट ट्रीट फैमिलीज इन ए डिफरेंट मैनर, ऐसा वो भारतीय भाषा परिवार का भी ये एक्चुअल संकल्पना है। और जब हम कहते हैं when we are critical about not accepting these language families, what are we trying to propose is a unified concept. We are not trying to propose that we have to rename it or we have to reclaim it or we have to re-understand them. What we are trying to say that this is one huge big umbrella term of Bharatiya Bhasha Parivar wherein we are fitting all these languages to fit into one particular framework, and that's where this idea of equistatum falls in. And other than that, there are other few concepts also that I would like to put forward. When we were drafting that Bharatiya Bhasha Parivar, we have used some of these terms like other than equistatum and cultural continuum, we were also very careful about not writing the words like indigenous, not writing the words which are not really contextual to Bharatiya understanding. Because we have written, in most of the terms, we have written it as Janajati Bhasha. Because when we talk about, in my recent fieldwork also, we have gone to Sora language community. वहाँ भी वो ये शायद that we have not included in the book, but this is out of my experience I'm sharing. वहाँ भी हमें जो शब्द हैं वो directly in relation to ओडिया, तेलुगु, हिंदी, ऐसा हर भाषा का relatable शब्द वो community में मिलता है जो they are like they are hill tribes and probably not that much, I should not be saying untouched, but not so, moving tribes so that they have communication. Because of that communication, those languages have changed. ऐसा विषय नहीं है। और इसका हमें और एक एविडेंस है जब हम बात करते हैं उड़ीसा में, हमने जब फील्ड वर्क गया था वहाँ इडिताल आर्ट को हमने we have documented that. Idital art, because of this migration theory of Aryan invasion theory talking about horse not being in India, the Idital art is probably thousands of years old. It's not been dated clearly. So thousands of years or lakhs of years we are never aware. But wo Idital art mein, it is the expression of Ramayana and Mahabharata. And that Idital art has a clear expression of horse in it and people in it. How is that when these theories portray that there is the horse was not here, it was bought by Aryans? If so, how is that a very in the corner forests of Odisha, this Sora tribe particularly has this Idital art, and how come there is a horse depiction in their images? And other than that, with regard to these particular communities also, all these Janajati communities also, they have one or other art form or one or other folk tale or one or other narrative which clearly shows that you cannot divide people by family. It is a common consciousness that we all hold together. And that consciousness is something that we are talking about as ekta. जैसा अभी माननीय कृष्ण गोपाल जी भी बता रहे थे कि हम सब एक हैं, तो वही दर्शन ये पुस्तक में आपको उपलब्ध होगा। तो वो उसके साथ साथ भी देर आर मल्टीपल एविडेंसेस। अभी जो राखी गढ़ी एक्सकवेशन का विषय भी ये पुस्तक में हमने मेंशन किया है। बिकॉज ऑफ दिस पद्मश्री शिंदे, रिसेंटली शिंदे जी हैज़ गॉट पद्मश्री, he has worked on it, and even in this book we have cited his work that how Rakhi Gadi excavations show clear evidences, or the genetic evidences and archaeological evidences, that we are the people of this land, unlike the migrations theories that were told to us. And ये ऐसा नहीं है, और हमको ये भी समझना है कि भारत में लोग माइग्रेट हुए हैं, यही हम सुनते आए हैं, परंतु भारत से यदि लोग माइग्रेट दूसरे जगह हुए हैं ये भी हमको सोचना चाहिए, बिकॉज इट इज़ नेवर यूनिडायरेक्शनल, इट वाज ऑलवेज मल्टी डायरेक्शनल. एंड वन ऑफ दीज एग्जाम्पल्स इन द recent times that we can see is the gypsy tribes traveled from Gujarat down the line from the present day Pakistan, Afghanistan, and they entered Ukraine and Russia. And even those when you are doing the linguistic the lexical items of that particular gypsy tribe is in clear relation to the Hindi or the Gujarati. And it's not just about the language alone, it is about the culture that they follow. Recently उनके ऊपर एक documentary आया था in 2019 probably. वो documentary में उनको आपको clearly दिखाई देता है they are worshipping एक मेरी माता का statue whose tongue is portrayed outside, which is a direct depiction to the Kali in our culture, which down the line carried. ये क्यों हुआ? ये जब वो documentary में it has been documented, you can see it's in YouTube. ये क्यों हुआ? उनका communities का वो विषय था जब when they were traveling, when they entered this Afghanistan, because of the Islamic influence, some of them converted to Islam. When they entered other Abrahamic states of where Christianity was popular, the Christianity, they have inculcated that particular religion, but the source of their culture remained the same, because they were mostly treated as foretellers there. तो उनका अभी भी the praying style या depiction of those people, because they have to survive, they kept on changing their religion, but they could not forego what has been given to them. Down the line, these are those facts that we have to remember, because whatever I just said right now, अभी जो भी ये 15 मिनट में मैं आपको बोला हूँ, everything is available as a cited work or a proper documentary, because these things cannot be said in that manner, like the story I said in the beginning, and then we go home. Because this continuity is something that is everlasting, and to continue the same, even today we are trying to work on the same theories of migration that happened from Africa, the migration that happened from Southeast Asia, the migration that happened in Tyrian Basin because of the trade. Just because these are quite popular narratives rather than theories, we cannot just accept as it is. Maybe this is the time of the idea of what we are trying to say it as decolonization, questioning whether these theories are in absolute. Sure. So this is where I think we should seek these questions in a manner wherein we find questions to probably debate in a very constructive manner, and one of those outcomes of understanding what should be Bharatiya understanding is this Bharatiya Bhasha Parivar. Dhanyavad.
Thank you. So now the session is open for questions, suggestions, submission, supplementation, rejoinders, whatever you would like to give. Yeah, please.
I'm Manjushri Sardeshpande from Nagpur. Actually, I enjoyed the session, and translation is one of the areas which I really am interested in. This question is to Anam sir. We talked about the source text and the target text, and somewhere we were talking about whether the target text should be considered inferior, and you said no. And I just wanted to know, a person should, I feel, should be well equipped to translate, first of all, because there are so many things, even if we could understand the source text, but I think that there are so many different people and the geographical background, cultural background, educational background, and all these things come into this thing focus when you start translating, because the interpretation can be so different. So still, do you think that source text and target text can be equal?
See, there is an Italian saying that traditor, traditor. That means translator is a traitor. Okay, so whatever the best that is done by the translator, so this is the award that he or she gets. So that is number one. And basic Western theories talk about when you go for the word level equivalence, definitely that becomes a problem. But later on, if you observe, there are kind of functional theories of translation like Scopus theory. So they say that from word level you have become a kind of text to text equivalence. If there is a text level equivalence, so when you say equivalence, they are both are in the same range. There is nothing like inferior or superior, right? But ultimately, since you also translate, my experience of translation is, so whether you are a reader biased or whether you want to be fidel or faithful to the source text. So there are of course free translations like sense to sense translation. So it all depends on what kind of strategies that the translator is following. But there are also people who can also kind of criticize, saying that when you follow free translation or sense to sense translation method, you may be told that like you are not faithful to the source text or the source author. Then of course the target text becomes inferior.
Inferior,
So it's
yeah.
very subjective actually.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Sir.
1 minute. I think both the speakers spoke very well. My question is to Dr. Fani Krishna. When we are talking about the cultural continuum, you simultaneously are talking about the continuum and at the same time the gap because of some interventions, cultural or whatever, social. And during these interventions, the bhashas, actually we no longer use the vernaculars, we call it bhashas. Bhashas have, through their contact, changed. So isn't it something, when we are talking about again Parivar, are we incorporating those changes into this Parivar? Those changes, as you have said, might be coming with their cultural baggage. The second thing, is there any attempt on the part of the Samiti to rewrite the history of Indian languages? Very, very important in the sense that we have to revisit and write the languages and their history. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to put it this way to the question number one, whether these changes are included. Obviously, when we are saying Bharatiya Bhasha Parivar, we consider the changes also to be the part of our Bharatiya Bhasha. May it be at sound level or structural level or at morphological level that are considered, but the organic unity that exists behind these particular languages to be highlighted, not just those minute differences that could probably as portrayed, because some of these languages of Northeast, when these are portrayed as tonal, some like Naga or Mizo, when you say tonal and you are directly relating it to another migration theory where we are talking about Bhutan, China migration, then more relatable, and you naming it as another language, probably that would not fit the need to understand Bharatiya Bhasha, is something that we actually put forward in the book also. That is point number one, sir. And point number two, with regard to Samiti's effort about actually, as far as now considered, sir, Samiti is thinking about Bhasha Vigyan, Bharatiya Bhasha Vigyan, to understand what are those grammatical, not just Panini or Tolakapiyam. In Telugu we have Nannaya. Likewise, multiple grammatical traditions from multiple languages. Even Maharashtra has probably one or two. Assam has one. So likewise, all these grammatical traditions we are trying to put forward as one भाषा विज्ञान in that manner, sir.
Once you do that,
जी.
are you sure that you are taking care of the diversity? One. The second, what is the approach of the Samiti towards northeastern languages, which you probably last 10 minutes or so. So I think our chairman knows more about the northeastern languages. I think that's quite crucial. Yeah.
Sir, I think
This is a rejoinder. We organized a number of conferences in Northeast, and the languages are not kept separate from the group. The languages spoken in Northeast are different from Tibeto-Burman languages spoken outside India. So they very much have, and there is a convergence even in that case also. We organized the conferences at Guwahati, at Silchar, at Kohima, and so on and so forth. So this is just Tripura and couple of more.
yes, sir.
And some more are being in the pipeline. Now there is a rejoinder to Roma you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
In 2017, probably if I do not fail my memory, National Law University Delhi, New Delhi organized an international conference on Romas, where at least about 15, 16 professors, Roma professors teaching in Europe and America, they were also participants there in the conference. So very much they trace, there is no doubt they are from India. They have gone from Haryana or Punjab or Rajasthan. As we examined their lexicon initially, and whatever faith they have adopted now, it doesn't matter, but they carry forward many of the traditions, which they have taken from India. So that is just one information.
Sure.
One more thing, I was there in Iran in a UNESCO-sponsored conference, and we found there one tribe makes tawa roti. In Iran, there is no tawa roti anywhere. Their dressing style is also similar to Rajasthan. It's a desert area, just like Rajasthan. I'm talking of Luristan. And their dresses also resemble, ghagra and choli and all that. So one has to conduct some more investigations to find out about the migrations which have taken from India.
धन्यवाद. जी सर.
In fact, both the resource persons will be here tomorrow also. So further discussion can always happen with them. And both of them have given very good treatment to the focal theme of today's technical session. So I thank both of them. And I don't want to repeat what they have already said it, but I would like to put forth 2-3 very small points. One is that NEP talks about education in the mother tongue or regional language. So for that, the fast track mode of implementing that is to translate the resource material which is already available in other languages, and that is what is happening. But there is always danger, because this translation can become very tricky. So enough care has to be taken. And I would like to cite one real accident that happened with the translation. My university and one technical university in Bathinda, we signed MOU, and the name of the Vice-Chancellor of that university is Professor Bhuta Singh. He is Punjabi, Sikh. Next day, when I read the news item on that MOU, then, Jagran, very reputed this newspaper, writes that Vice-Chancellor of Central University of Punjab, Professor R.P. Tiwari, and it was in Hindi, and Vice-Chancellor of PTU University, Professor Paudha Singh, signed MOU. Bhuta Singh became Paudha Singh, in Hindi. So translation is, and, as was said, very rightly said in the, the technical session, that authors के भाव को समझना, audience और कंटेक्स्ट, ऑथर किस कंटेक्स्ट में लिख रहा है, कैसे उसको प्रेजेंट कर रहा है, उस भाव को ट्रांसलेशन में लाना, एक्चुअली ये कहीं अर्थ का अनर्थ ना हो. दूसरी जो सबसे बड़ी समस्या ये है कि मदर टंग इज चेंजिंग. मेरी माँ बघेली बोलती थी, मैं रीवा का हूँ मध्य प्रदेश का, तो मेरे लिए मदर टंग बघेली हो गई। मेरी पत्नी खड़ी हिंदी बोलती हैं, तो मेरे बच्चों के बेटे के लिए, बेटियों के लिए खड़ी हिंदी हो गई। और मेरी बहू और बेटा दोनों अंग्रेजी बोलते हैं, तो मेरे पोते के लिए अंग्रेजी हो गई मदर टंग। तो ये जब तो पैरेलली ट्रांसलेशन के साथ साथ क्रिएशन ऑफ द रिसोर्स मटेरियल in regional languages, the mother tongue is necessary. So both have to go parallelly. Otherwise, the demography of mother tongue will also change very fast. और एक दिन ऐसा आएगा कि ज़्यादा लोगों की, ज़्यादा पॉपुलेशन की अपने देश की मदर टंग अंग्रेजी हो जाएगी। तो इसको भी हमें ध्यान में रखना है। तीसरी बात जो ये है कि जैसे मैं बोल रहा था कि सरकारी व्यवस्था और समाज की व्यवस्था, रिसोर्स मटेरियल तो बन जाएगा, चलिए रीजनल लैंग्वेज में, चाहे ट्रांसलेशन से चाहे ओरिजिनल राइटिंग से, लेकिन जो हमारे, एक एग्जाम्पल दूंगा, जो हमारी 16 संस्कार होते हैं और सभी संस्कारों के लिए रीजनल लैंग्वेजेज में जो संस्कार गीत हैं उनका क्या होगा, जो ये शिफ्टिंग हो रही है भाषा की मदर टंग की, उनका क्या होगा, उसमें जो ज्ञान भंडार भरा पड़ा है उनका क्या होगा। तो ये हमें इसका भी ध्यान देखना पड़ेगा कि हमारी मदर टंग, ठीक है हम जिस प्रोफेशन में हैं वहाँ जो जिस लैंग्वेज की आवश्यकता है उस लैंग्वेज में हम काम करें, बोलें, लेकिन घर में तो कम से कम हम अपनी भाषा बोल सकते हैं, वहाँ तो हम अंग्रेजी ना बोलें। और अंत में मैं केवल ये बोलूँगा कि देखिए, डिकॉलोनाइजेशन ऑफ द इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस और द इंडियन लैंग्वेज फैमिलीज, ये इसको एक आइसोलेटेड, वी कैन नॉट टेक इट एज आइसोलेटेड एक्सरसाइज, बिकॉज this will happen only when we decolonize our mind, our thought process, our thinking, our lifestyle. We come back to original before the colonization. तो जब हम समग्र रूप से डिकॉलोनाइजेशन अपने माइंड को करेंगे तभी होगा। अभी कोई जेन जेड की बात कर रहा था, मेरा बेटा हमेशा बोलता था कि हमको तो चाउमीन खाना है, ये खाना है, वो खाना है। मैं बोला क्यों खाओगे? बोलता मैं जेन जेड हूँ। मैं बोला तुम जेन जंक हो, ये सब खा करके तुम जंक बन रहे हो। जेन नेक्स्ट जेन या जेन जेड या जेन, अभी अब पता नहीं आगे क्या आ जाएगा, XYZ भी आएगा। तो ये इसमें हम सभी तरह से अपने खाने पीने को, पहनावे को, रहन सहन को, थॉट प्रोसेस को जब तक हम डिकोलाइज नहीं करेंगे तब तक हम अपने उसमें वापस नहीं आ पाएंगे और तब तक हम अपनी शिक्षा व्यवस्था को उस तरीके की नहीं बना पाएंगे जिस तरीके की हम बनाना चाहते हैं। मैं एंकर का भी टाइम ले लूँगा। दोनों रिसोर्स पर्सन को बहुत बहुत साधुवाद, आप सभी को सुनने के लिए बहुत बहुत साधुवाद, और एंकर को भी बहुत बहुत साधुवाद। अब समय हो गया है, धन्यवाद देने की आवश्यकता नहीं है। थैंक यू, जय हिंद, जय भारत।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। धन्यवाद तो मुझे देना ही है क्योंकि अतिथि देवो भव के भाव से हम भारतीय भरे हुए हैं। अतिथि हमारे मंच पर है और हम अतिथियों का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देते हैं। भाषा संघर्ष की नहीं, संपर्क साधती है। यहाँ से आज सुबह हम प्रारंभ हमने किया और यहाँ तक हम पहुँचे हैं, और ये संवाद जो है इस ऑडिटोरियम तक नहीं रहे, ये संवाद हमारे क्लासरूम तक जाए, इसी आशा और विश्वास के साथ आप सभी को बहुत 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 धन्यवाद। और अब इसके बाद 8 बजे नीचे जो है मेन हॉल ऑडिटोरियम में कल्चरल इवनिंग रखी गई है और कल सुबह 10 बजे हम वापस मिलेंगे। आप सभी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय भारत, जय राजस्थान।
आप सभी फोटो आ जाइए।
हाँ, आप सभी ग्रुप फोटो के लिए आ जाइए।
सभी आ जाइए।
अभी हम सब देख रहे हैं कि मंच पर जो है पूरा भारतीय भाषा परिवार जुटा हुआ है।
कहाँ गए भाई?
आइए साकेत जी
कैसे होगा फिर लोगों में बैठ जाएंगे आइए आप बैठिए बैठिए
इसमें ले लो, इसमें लेंस